Hello and welcome back to Decisive Squirrel Homestead. Today is April 23rd. It's a Saturday and I thought it would be a good time to do an update before we get started on our garden chores this morning. Behind me here is our corn patch that's doing quite well. A lot of the corn is coming up. We are going to get in here and do a little bit of weeding today where some extra grass has come up through the spots where the corn is planted. But things are doing pretty good. We've never been successful with corn before, but this is looking better than it's ever gone before. So hopefully things go well here. Let's take a look at everything else. We'll start with fruit trees today. Our peach tree from last year is doing really well. It does have some peaches on it. I don't know if we'll actually get those or not. This is still a small tree, but it's alive and happy. Down here, our apple tree that always leaves out early is doing well. I don't know that it has viable fruit on it. There's one apple with a hole in it. This one looks like it's doing pretty good. We might get one. That's probably about the limit for a tree this size anyway. Our other apple tree down here that is always a little slow to get started has finally put out leaves. So that's good. And it looks like we might actually get some blooms here. Oh, there are blooms up here. Those are new. This tree didn't bloom last year, I don't think. So that's good progress there. We have our little Nanking cherry stick. It's down here on the end that does have some new growth on it, so it's still alive. It's the only one that we put up here that's actually doing well, so that's in pretty good shape. Our plum trees are happy. They have grown a lot and they've put out a lot of leaves, but no plums this year. We did have a couple of plums on this tree, but they did not survive. They weren't actually growing well. But we have good tree growth, so we'll have plums in the future. We have a little patch here of some herbs, and there's some nasturtiums around here, and a little bird bath that we fill with water, and the feral cats that are around come and drink from. The new herbs are not doing super great yet. There's some sage that's just hanging out and staying exactly the same size it was when I planted it. That's sage. There's some basil in the back there. Those aren't really growing yet, but the rosemary from last year, there's an ivy trying to take that over. And this is oregano from last year. Those are doing really good. A little bit of non-food fun. I don't usually purposely grow flowers unless they're to help the food, but I got some cheap bulbs at Aldi last fall, and I planted those in this spot that is really just sand and rock. It's not really good soil at all. And the irises have decided they really like it over here, so that's been fun. We have white and yellow. I didn't even know irises could be white and yellow. And then most of the purple ones have already bloomed. This is a new one that's here. I almost grabbed that and there's a wasp on it. That would have been bad. But these are all coming up and they're really happy, so that's been fun to see. The lemon tree is still looking a little scraggly, but it does have some new growth on it. I don't know that there are any lemons on it. I'm not seeing any viable lemons. The lime tree does seem to have some limes that are actually going to make, but we'll see what happens as time goes on with that. And then we planted some nasturtiums and things like that down there at the bottom that have come up. This bonfire peach has finally decided it's alive, it's all leafed out. It's not really growing branches for the most part, which is a little bit weird. I'm not sure what to make of that. But there are blooms and some little peaches on here. I don't know if they'll actually make or not. Down here at the bottom, we have our hardy kiwi that we're trying to get going. That's trying to climb its neighbor, the goji berry. I'm going to have to undo that. You have to stay in your own pot. We will give you something to climb today. Goji berries are looking a little bit rough, but they are alive. My Christmas cactus back here has started putting out new leaves. I'm really need to get this in a new pot. Our new trees that we planted this year are also all doing well. So this is a pear that has started to leaf out finally. It's got some good new growth going on it. We did plant some flowers, and I believe that's a pumpkin down there, and there's garlic around the edge of it. This one over here is a peach, and it does have a pretty sizable peach on it. So I think we might get a little bit of fruit. It's actually got a lot of peaches on it, but this is a new tree. We're not going to let it grow that much fruit. So if it doesn't start dropping some of these smaller peaches, we will have to take some of those off because it's just too many for a first year tree. There's also some pumpkin down at the bottom of that. The idea, we have pumpkin at the base of all of these trees, and the idea is for them to spread out and take over this space. Hopefully, maybe choke out some of the weeds. Hopefully give the critters something to eat that's closer to the woods here so they don't come into the main garden. And then if we get some extra too, that would be great. This is another peach tree over here, leafed out, looking really good. I don't think it has any viable peaches on it. I see one small one right here. I don't know that that's gonna make, nope, just fell off. I don't think so, but that's expected for our first year. In the back here, we have another pear tree that is really happy. It has tons of new growth, but something is eating the leaves. I'm gonna have to investigate what's going on with that. But lots and lots of new growth on it. This pear tree took a long time to leaf out at all. We thought it was dead, and it's only got this one little shoot off the trunk. So I'm not sure what's going on with it. None of these branches have any leaves yet. So we'll see what happens with that. Back here behind me, we have one of our new trees. My mom got me 2 pecan trees for my birthday. So this is a new pecan tree. It's gonna take a long while for that to be making anything, but the idea is for that to be a big tall tree in the center here, and then keep the fruit trees around it short. That's the long-term plan. Over here we have another pear that was also a little bit late, but it is starting to leaf out. So it's got some new growth off the trunk here, but there's also leaves coming out at the end of the branches. So it's doing pretty well. And then along the outside of this entire area, all along the edge of the woods there, we planted pumpkin vines probably about every 2 feet. So that goes around the edge of this entire clearing, and we will train most of those to run their vines up in between all of these trees. Some of them we'll have go out into the forest and see if we can start kind of taking over this unruly area back here a little bit. Like I said, we're not actually rural. We're not out in the woods or anything like that. We're in a town. This was an area that was not maintained at all, and it's been taken over by some fairly invasive things that aren't really supposed to be growing to this extent in this area. So we are trying to turn it into mostly food. Don't know how that's gonna go, but we're kind of making a few inroads here with our pumpkin vines this year. Over here where our bees used to be, we have done a similar thing. We have spaghetti squash growing all along the edge of this clearing. And we don't really eat spaghetti squash, but I'm sure the chickens will love it. And it will be something for pests and critters to go for that is not the main garden. So we're just growing them to see how that goes. That was part of the free seed that we got several weeks ago. So we started the plants, they're doing well. We've gotten them in the ground back here, and so far they're happy. I think we are going to put some pepper plants in this clearing. Josh went to a conference and he talked to someone who researches peppers, and we have a plan to try to do a perennial pepper forest sort of thing in here. So that'll be interesting. This is my other pecan tree I got for my birthday. It's really happy, it's leafed out, it's got some new growth, it's settling in really well. And again, it has some pumpkin vines down at the bottom. And a giant ragweed I see back there, I need to pull that. My mammoth gray striped sunflowers along here are growing well. We'll see what those end up doing. I've never had a lot of luck with sunflowers, and we have a lot of leaf-footed bugs around here, and they love sunflowers. So we'll see if we get anything. And then these are a little bit harder to see, but I have, I forget what they're called now, chocolate sunflowers, I think, from Baker Creek, the really, really dark maroon flowers. So we'll see if those come up, if we get any of them. You can probably hear the chickens back there. Figs are really happy. They have leafed out a lot. I haven't seen any fruit on them yet, but they have come back from winter quite well, and they are settling in nicely. And then we get over to the garden. So our berry vines along the edge here clearly need some work today. There are some weeds that have to come out. We have these dewberries coming up everywhere. And dewberries are native here, and they do really well in really bad soil. So I think we're gonna let those do as well as they'll do. Oh, I see a berry that's ready to pick. So dewberries are very much like blackberries. They taste a lot like a blackberry. You can cook them like a blackberry. You can use them just like blackberries. So that's a nice thing to have around here. They have put out, let's see, you can see over here, these that have 5 leaves, those are first year canes. They don't make fruit. The second year canes have 3 leaves. You gotta know what's poison ivy and what's dewberry around here. And the second year canes are the ones that put out berries. So we have lots and lots of first year canes around here. We will be overrun with dewberries next year, which is a great thing. There is a raspberry hanging out here that is holding its own amongst the weeds and the dewberries that I think we're going to be able to nurse along as long as we get some weeding done over here and probably a little bit of fertilizing, and maybe we can get that going. Our actual blackberries that we planted are not doing as well. This one has put out some berries this year, so that's good. This one down here has this one little tiny bunch of leaves, and that's it. And the other ones on this row do not look like they're alive. So I don't know what's going to happen with those. We may end up just having this whole strip just be dewberries, but that's okay. You can use them just like you use blackberries. All right, so starting at the edge of the garden, we call this bed 5. On the outside edge here, all of our beans are finally coming up and being happy. We actually have some beets to harvest. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with beets tonight, I guess, for dinner. The few that we did get are doing really well. We just didn't get very many. We have some aphids on the beans. That's an ongoing issue. I need to figure out something to do about that. I see the first bean bloom of the year. I haven't seen blooms yet. You can see all these aphids though. I've got to take care of that. But they're blooming, they're growing. This squash plant is doing really well. And yeah, there's a giant squash. We have to have squash for dinner tonight. Big squash down there that needs to be harvested. Our edamame has settled in pretty well on this near edge. It's looking pretty happy. We planted 12 edamame plants, and then the next weekend we planted another 12, and then this weekend we'll plant another 12. So hopefully that will give us at least several meals of edamame. Squash plants have settled in. Here's another beet that probably needs to be pulled. That's looking pretty big. So everyone's doing well there. Bed 4 has peppers on the right-hand side. Those went in a week ago, so they're still settling in. They haven't really started growing yet, but they look like they're pretty happy. And we did do some herbs over here because I was seeing the problems with the aphids and the beans. And so I'm trying to get some more herbs over here in the main part of the garden to discourage pests. Onions down the middle row are doing really well. And then we have this year's tomato plants. I did some pruning during the week this week. Looks like they probably need more. And they definitely need to be tied to the trellis a little bit. And they have some aphids also, but not as much. We had the same thing happen last year where we had some winged aphids on the tomatoes early on, but they weren't an issue later in the year. You can see there are big tomatoes showing up. So they're doing well. They're happy. This plant also has a lot going on it already. I need to check what I planted where because I'm not sure what kind these are. These almost, I think these are Cherokee purples. That's what they look like. But we have these, they're not quite cherry tomatoes. These are Prairie Fire, I think. Oops. That wasn't good. But we have lots of green tomatoes coming up on here. Most of these plants are healthy until you get way close to the end. And they're just not happy at the end of this row. The end of this row has never been happy. There's got to be something in the ground around there. But we'll get there. We'll get it healthy eventually. I'm pretty sure these are Blue Beauty tomatoes that are starting to have this shadowing on them. So we'll see how those are. We haven't grown those before. I see a nasturtium bloom back here. That's the first nasturtium I've seen this year. We have these over here to help with pests. You can eat them, but I don't like flowers, so I never do. Hugo culture bed on the end here will eventually have loofahs growing on it. I think I'll probably get those in the ground today, actually. We have seedlings and they're growing pretty well. Bed 3 has pepper plants that went in a couple of weeks ago, so they have settled in well. I haven't seen blooms yet, but they have a lot of good growth. And I think we will be seeing peppers soon. This is only bell peppers and sugar rush peach peppers. But everybody's looking happy here. Again, onions down the middle, those all look great. Peas are starting to look pretty rough. They have powdery mildew down at the bottom. They're starting to die back. I really want to get these peas out because I want to put cucumbers in. I realize the powdery mildew will be a problem for the cucumbers also, but powdery mildew is a problem everywhere here. It's pretty unavoidable. There's lots of peas. We have started harvesting. I need to harvest today also. Bed 2 is a lot of carrots and purple hull peas. We have started pulling the carrots, and then as carrots come out, purple hull peas go in. So we can see those are all doing really well. Carrots are growing well. Purple hull peas, again, aphids. There's so many aphids. That's definitely on the to-do list today. But this bed's doing well overall. Lots of good growth happening here. Down at the end of this row, we have our blue Hubbard squash. That again is a trap crop for squash vine borers. They like the blue Hubbard squash more than they like the yellow squash and zucchini, and the blue Hubbard squash is more tolerant. So even though they get attacked, they still put out some fruit. Again, that's another one we don't really eat, but the chickens love it. So it's good food for them. And last we have bed 1. The chickens are right next to that today. So you can probably hear them. Somebody has a lot to say over there. So we have onions on the outside edge that are doing well. I don't know why this one strawberry plant died. We do have some strawberries that are very dense and the crowns need to be split for next year, but we can't do that right now. But we are getting a good number of strawberries every day, so probably a handful or 2 of strawberries a day. There are some weeds that need to be pulled in here, and the big bushy plants in the middle, those are thyme that grows well with strawberries. But we are getting lots and lots of these They're growing really well. We're not having many pest problems because they're on top of this weed barrier. They're not sitting on the dirt. That's helped a lot with pests. Ooh, this strawberry plant's putting out its own little baby, so we'll have to cut a hole so this can root in the ground and make a new plant. Back in the corn patch, I'm not sure if you could see this at the beginning of the video, but we do have more pumpkin plants over here on the side. I realize it's a lot of pumpkin. A lot of it is more critter deterrents and chicken food than food for humans. Also just to have around for Halloween and decoration. We can give some away to neighbors. It's just something to help more with companion planting than really to be food. And I'm not sure if you can see over there, we do have some zucchini plants that are going to be in the middle of, there's actually not corn planted right there. That's why there's so much grass coming up. But the zucchini plants will take up that space. And then along the edge of this corn bed, we also have beans. For that classic beans, corn, and squash, Three Sisters planting. Our wicking beds over here, I realize they look like a mess, but part of that is because the asparagus is doing so great. We are not harvesting the asparagus this year. We're letting it grow so it builds a good root system. But that means that every asparagus shoot ends up making like a tree in this bed. And then they all fall over and make this big mass. But that's okay. We let them be there and photosynthesize, and then when they start to yellow, we'll cut them out. And next year, I think we're going to be overrun with asparagus, which is a good problem to have. So I'm pretty sure every crown we have planted is putting up shoots at this point. We keep seeing lots of new ones. So that's gone well. Our herb bed here, lots and lots and lots and lots of mint, because that's what mint does, and that's why we have it here, so it doesn't take over elsewhere. There is some basil in there that is holding its own. There's sage, but I think the sage has been run over by mint. I see, here's a little sage plant right here, but the mint's just growing faster than the sage. But there is a little bit of basil that's coming up. There's also basil over by the tomatoes, so that's fine. This is oregano. It's also coming back really well. It's very happy. And our parsley has been doing really well, but it's starting to bolt now. But that's been happy. My mustard experiment was a total fail, as you can see. Some of the plants have bolted because of stress, so I might get some seed, but not enough to make mustard out of. This is aphids again. Aphids completely ran over all of this. I'm pretty sure this is our bed that had some trouble though. I think it holds too much water. So it's possible the plants were stressed and that's why the aphids got it. This one has a bunch of thyme and again some mustard that is doing better but not great. But it has bolted. We have some flowers up here. So I'll get a little bit of seed, but not what I was looking for. I'll have some I can cook with though. This is a lettuce bed that just started, so it doesn't have a whole lot in there yet. I probably need to throw some more seed down today and make sure that gets watered in. And then this is the old lettuce bed that doesn't have a whole lot left in it. There's some bolted lettuce here that we'll collect the seed from. I see a ladybug in here eating aphids. 2 ladybugs eating aphids. We do have ladybugs around here. We do see them eating the aphids on a regular basis, but not enough. More aphids than ladybugs. Oh, here are more. Let's see if we can make that focus. So they are going to town. There's a bunch on this plant actually, and some ladybug larvae down here too. So we have lots of happy predator insects. It's just that the aphids got a head start. We'll see how that goes. We need to get some of the aphids off, but I don't want to put down pesticides and hurt the good bugs. We do have some good lettuce back here that we can still be harvesting from, but we're really waiting for this second bed to take off. And And then of course the chickens keep wanting to get their say in. Looks like they need more water. They're running a little bit low. And they are due to move today, it looks like. There's not a lot of grass left in there. They've eaten it down. So time to move to this new patch right in front of them, which they would very much like to get at so they can eat that. Hello, ladies. And now it's time to get started on a busy day of garden chores. I hope your gardens are growing well and you're enjoying your spring. We'll see y'all later. Bye.